I chose to start living on the streets. I did have money at one time in my early to mid 20s, and and those things changed. And then I was at this point in my life where I kind of looked around and I was like, started checking people off, like you're none any good for me, and that included family that I have very few of. Um, but even those, so I said, I go to work every day and I'm miserable. I said I could go do nothing, live on the beach and be miserable. So that's what I did. I didn't go home. I didn't go to my job. Uh, I saw somebody making some things, and I knew that I wasn't the type of person I could ask anybody for anything. That I've always felt pretty capable and highly intelligent, and just emotionally somehow crippled in a way at that time. And so I learned how to make roses out of palm fronds. And so I'd climb the trees with a knife in my mouth, or find one that's lower to the ground. But either way, I made a bunch of other things as well, but the roses were the main thing. And I had a little gimmicks, I would give them away. I do accept donations. That's how I live. That's how I eat. That's how I get by. But you couldn't be like a pretty girl and walk by me without getting a rose. If you were a couple or had kids, and if you give stuff away to, say, people with kids, they feel compelled to give you something now. And if you give something away to a girl that a man is on a date with, now they feel that they have to be the one, so they will almost always give you something. And I would be like, hey, you're going to give your girl a rose, going to die in a couple of days. Why don't you give her one that'll last 20, 30 years, maybe forever, and you can remember this moment. And so I had my little gimmicks and whatnot. And I have like a natural salesman, gift of gab type. Um, that was another career that I used to do very, very well. But it was like an adventure, when people would ask me, why are you doing? I'm like, I'm on a journey. I'm finding myself. Like, where do you live? I live on Earth. I exist. That's it. I'm and that's what it felt like at first, and it was an adventure, and it was fun. I had a girlfriend that wasn't homeless. I had people that would come hang out with me to party, and they weren't homeless. And so I would shower at the beach, or I would get clothes from these individuals, shower there. I knew how to get food, because not only was I making good money doing this, like at least I could sit somewhere for a couple hours, 2 hours, and make 50 or more dollars. A lot of times it'd be 100 or something. Just a couple hours sitting somewhere around people. And so it was a little glorious at first, or it seemed it. But anyways, that changed. There was a lot of arrests. The police do not like people just hanging out or just existing or breathing air. So they were at me. And my smile always bothered them. And I did always had something wrong on me, or drinking wasn't supposed to. A lot of fighting. People are not, in general, nice in those environments. And so there was a lot of fights. I had bleeding on the brain. I had two friends. One, they got in a fight. We were just hanging out just moments before, and one got in a fight. The other one, or they both got in a fight with each other, and one ended up dead, and the other one with manslaughter. I started really kind of like, I would have these moments of clarity, and I would step. It was like almost like an out of body experience, and I could like see myself look at myself, the decisions I was making, the way I was living. And I'm not going into too much detail, but there was a lot, like I said, a lot of fighting. I had bleeding on the brain. I had been jumped a couple times and have scars and all kind of different. My knuckles are just a bit deformed now from fighting with broken knuckles, and some days I might have gotten in 4 fights in that one day. But not to go on these negative points, it really woke me up. I was like, and so I really wanted to change, and it felt like the hole I had dug myself in, I kept trying to climb out and I kept falling back in. But what I eventually realized is that wherever we're at, and this was like the truth that I kind of stood with, is not where you have to stay. And so somebody did give me a little bit of help, and it wasn't a family member, but it was an old acquaintance. Um, and then I got out of the state because it seemed like the state, and then a new place. Yeah, but then the same thing started happening. They started falling, and I had to separate myself from there too to not fall down with them. And since then, I've been kind of continuing, and the process I've been on, it's taken time and it's taken a lot of reflection. Um, but it's a moment in my life, it's a time in my life that I wouldn't trade, I wouldn't change, because through it all, through all that struggle, through all that pain, uh, I gained so much. And I'm not saying I'm anywhere great now, but if I look back at where I've been and the ups and downs, I really am. And it's what I found out is that no matter where you go, you take that with you. So with money, I was miserable. Without money, I was miserable. And so I started realizing, because I'm not an idiot, just ask yourself some things sometimes, like, what is it that I just keep repeating? Because I've had light bulb moments, is what I like to call them. And those moments of clarity, those were all light bulb moments. And I had another one where I like, it felt out of body-ish, but I saw myself about to go right. I had just gone through a cycle of addiction and gotten through the sicknesses and stuff. And then I had a whole bunch of drugs in my hand and money in my pocket and people there already doing these things. And I just like, it was like I stepped right out and I said, you know what? Like, if I do this, I'm just going to go through the exact same things again. And I said, I don't want to do that. And so I made a different choice. And that same principle, that same clarity applies to everything. It's just take a moment and ask, like, what can I learn from this? Not what it's doing to me always, because that's so obvious. But what am I meant to learn from this? And so I know now from how I feel internally that everything else around me is going to start shifting for me. And I just wanted to share that moment in my life. And I have a lot more stories, believe me. I've lived a lot of, contradictory situations and circumstances and life paths. And I'm going to share them here. And hopefully you guys like them. So, like me, subscribe. I'll put more videos up. This is a first kind of for me. This is me stepping out. So, comments are welcome. I do have a blog on Substack called New Waters, if you want to check it out as well. And thank you guys.